Cool. I think let's get this started. Um, so
Yes.
okay, cool. Yeah. Hey guys, this is Satish Palaniappan here. I'm currently working as an applied machine learning engineer at Microsoft, and this is going to be a career talk about what we like, mainly around what you can do after graduation. There are like a million things you could do after graduating. I've tried to focus on the main things that most of the audience will benefit from. And before I jump into the crux of the talk, I'm going to um, quickly go through like my journey so far, like how I got to SSN, how I got my first job, how I got into JHU, and how I landed a job in Microsoft. Like I just try to quickly run through the journey. Um, um, so I'm basically from Madurai. I did my schooling in Madurai, and after that, I joined SSN Computer Science in 2012. And around that time, like I was a very timid boy. I had a lot of stage fear. I cannot speak proper English back then. I like I stutter a lot when I talk, and I had zero self confidence in myself when I joined SSN, and everything around me was just scaring me like anything. When like when I joined SSN, and just one thing that kept me going was I loved computer science, and I just wanted to do something amazing with it, and but I didn't find the confidence to express my talents anywhere. Like the first year just went ahead. I was just going with the flow, doing all the courses, assignments, stuff. Nothing interesting, but I was just learning a lot of programming languages, Java, Python, and I just tried to, and I still remember us hacking through our way through the different Linux distros, and we even brought down the colleges, like the college hostels LAN network once. It was all interesting the first year. The second year is when I actually wanted to badly pursue my masters, and I wanted to start my preparations then. And I knew that I had to start with profile building, and I needed some internships, projects, research papers, and stuff. So I started applying for a bunch of internships with a lot of startups, with a lot of like academic programs and stuff. I remember applying to around 13, 14 places, and I was rejected literally by every one of them. And by the end of second year, um, I had lost all hope, and that's when one of our faculty approached me, like explaining about an opportunity where CME was coming to India to give a very short internship for 14 days on machine learning. At that point, I knew just what machine learning was, just the bare definition of it, and I had no projects or I had done nothing related to it. And that's when I got into like the deadline to apply for that internship was just a day from just a day after they informed me about it. I just had a day to prepare my first statement of purpose, my LORs. All the faculty helped me so much, and we were able to get the application in by the deadline. And I had zero hope because it was a machine learning internship, and I had and it was open all over India. But as it turns out, I was picked up as one of the 44 people from across India to do that internship. And when I went there, it was in NIT Karnataka. So I went there, and all of them were basically from IITs and NITs and all of the top institutes, and they were totally intimidating me. I was already having so much fear and self doubt, and this just worsened the situation so much so that I got scared, and I just wanted to leave the internship immediately and come back. Um, I called my mom and I cried and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And my mom just told, just give it a shot. Let's see what happens. And from next day on, I just went with the flow. I just started learning new things every single day, getting into incept like huge deep dives of Wikipedia articles, like learning a lot about machine learning from scratch, and just on and on and on. And like I just barely slept 2 hours every day, all 14 days of that internship, and from zero in machine learning, at the end of the internship, I was able to build like a emotion recognition engine. Why I'm telling this story in such detail is that when I started, I had no idea what I was doing, and and I, I like I was so scared, and I didn't have any knowledge. And the best thing about this, like this internship was every single day you had to present what you had done the next day. Um, and uh, Can you mute Vishal? And yeah, so like every single day you had to present what you had done so far. And it turns out that doing that every single day in front of people who knew so much about machine learning and they had done so many projects about machine learning already, like took away all of my stage fear, and I started gaining more confidence within myself. And that this internship was one of the most critical parts of my life where I got into machine learning, and it helped me to get where I am today. And the things I learned there, I'm using currently at my job at Microsoft. That's how impactful it was. And after that, I found a newfound confidence in myself, and I wanted to do more and seize more opportunities like this. So I started participating in literally everything that SSN had to offer. And one such event was the entrepreneurship cell conducted a hackathon for like building like pitching startups, and I had participated in that. And by the end of it, the idea which we pitched was very bad as a business model, and we didn't win it. But the tech behind the entire startup was so good that one of the judges came up to me and he offered me an internship at his company. And but that internship was a plain software engineering internship in Python, and I told him blatantly that no, I don't want it. I want a machine learning internship. And he linked me with Ronojoy Adhikari from the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, and that's how I got my first research internship with like in machine learning. And like I literally didn't think that that would become so huge. And like eventually in that internship I got to build an optical character recognition engine for the Indus scripts, which is like a 4,000-year-old ancient inscription. And that work like uh, gather a lot of attention from the media, Hindu, Times of India, Verge, everybody covered, and they wrote articles on it, and the research paper was published, and a lot of things happened after that. But um, like in the meantime, like I was also the placement coordinator for that year, and I was sitting for placements. My aim until then was still to pursue masters. I still remember writing my SOP in the library when I was working as a placement coordinator. But I just wanted to give a try of the top companies that come to SSN, like Amazon or Cube. The first day it was Amazon, and I went and gave my my interview. And the first question was string reversal, and it had to be done in C, C++, or Java. Um, and I didn't prepare for the interviews at all, so I had zero context on the syntax involved in any of these languages because I was only coding in Python day in day out. And I failed miserably in just by like the question was just string reversal, but I was not able to do it. I failed miserably, and it just hit me so hard that I lost all the confidence in me, and I wanted to prove a point. So the next day it was cube, and I gathered all that's in me, and I just gave everything in that like in that interview. And the first round was MCQ, I guess. I like after passing that, it was a 4 hour coding interview, and I completed that in just 2 hours because I had asked them that I want to do it in Python. And so I was able to, and the things that the questions they asked me were totally related to string manipulation, which I learned in my previous internships with Serendio and CMU. And like all of the things I already knew were in the form of questions in that interview. So I aced it, and the next thing I skipped the next 2 rounds of technical interviews, and then finally it was the HR interview about projects and stuff. And that's when I knew they were going to hire me for a role which is pretty unique, in the sense that they want me to do machine learning for the digital cinema industry, and they had nobody else doing it. I'll be the first one doing it, and that just enticed me so much that I decided to work a year before I joined, like before I wanted to do my masters, because I didn't want to lose this opportunity, and I knew this was not going to come back in my life if I just let it go. So I just took the job, and it was like a dream job, I guess, like one of the top paying jobs back then. Um, but yeah, and I joined Cube. I was doing amazing work. I tried applying for my master's the first year, and I applied for about 15 universities, if I'm not wrong. Literally every single one of them rejected me. By then, I had given my GRE 3 times because my GRE scores were pretty low. I was only getting 313 the first time, the second time it was 314, and the third time it was 313 again. It was like it was jinxed. I gave the GRE 3 times by then, but I made a mistake of sending all of my scores to the universities. I'll talk about it soon in the upcoming slides, but yeah. So I was rejected by all universities, and I lost all hope. And I was just working, like continuing to work, and that's when I got to mentor people for the Smart India Hackathon, and we won national level at in projects from ISRO and the Department of Post, and all of that was keeping me going. And that is exactly when this my InduScript work was also like being very popular, and that like all of that helped me cope with this. And I gained all the courage and applied the second time. But this time around, I took a long break before I took my next GRE attempt. Before then, it was just 3 months apart each attempt, and the fourth attempt was like more than 6 months apart. And the fourth time was the charm, I guess. I got a 324, and I got a 169 on quant, and I got a 116 on TOEFL, because I had to take my TOEFL again, like as it expired 2 year, like as it expires in 2 years. And this time around, I got into good universities like Brown and like JHU, and I picked JHU over the others. And that slowly translated to me like specializing in machine learning, natural language processing at JHU, and also computer vision, and getting my first internship at Amazon, and then my first job offer at Microsoft. So like that's the rough path I took, and I'll be getting into the details of my interview experiences and my and the work life and the life at JHU and stuff soon. But I just wanted to tell this story because the few key takeaways from this story. The first one is that many people think it's not okay to fail, it's not okay to make mistakes, but it's completely all right. Like when I was signing up for this event, which I'm presenting now, and I looked at the poster, they had all of the fancy terms in there: Microsoft, X Amazon, SSN, like scholarship holder, blah blah blah. I was like, all of that is true, but nobody knows about the 34 universities which rejected me. Nobody knows about my four GRE attempts. Nobody knows about the 14 internships I applied to, and all of them that rejected me. And all the times I failed, they don't get projected out. So people think that you can't fail, but it's okay to fail that to multiple times repeatedly, because all it takes is just to succeed once, and your and all of your previous failures just vanish in just a second. So just be bold, try to make a lot of mistakes, because if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning, but don't try to repeat those mistakes again. And the next thing is to just put yourself out there and keep hustling, because if I hadn't given that that hackathon by the entrepreneurship cell at SSN a chance, I wouldn't have got my breakthrough with the OCR for the Induscripts and all of the media coverage that it got. Like you just need to seize every single opportunity you get, and also just trust in the process and have fun doing all of this as well. Um, so the main thing is that we were like the main thing I see people saying things is that I'm not ready enough to take up that opportunity and do well in like on it. To all of them, I would just like to say, just fake it until you make it, because I still remember Ronajay Adhikari from IMSC sending me the first picture of the Indus script and asking me that if I can extract just the text regions from it. I had no idea back then what was like what it had to do with and how to build algorithms like around it, how to even start solving the problem. I had zero idea, but I just committed to him saying that, yeah, that sounds like an amazing thing. I'll do it, because I just saw the opportunity in it, and I just told, yeah, I can do it. And then I figured out how to do it. So it's basically you never will be completely ready to pick up an opportunity and make the fullest of it. So just fake it until you make it. And like like one of the famous quotes by Steve Jobs is that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them by looking backward. I strongly believe that everything happens for a reason. Like for example, if I had if I had not done my CME internship, I would have not gotten into the NLP domain, and I wouldn't be and like working on NLP at Microsoft today. And if not for um um like the various things that happened all along my life, it didn't make sense when it was happening. Like the first time I missed, and all of the universities rejected me. If they hadn't rejected me, I wouldn't have had the time and energy to pursue my internship at IMSC and get all of those publications out, or I wouldn't have had the chance to win all of those hackathons at the national level. But looking back, everything makes sense. But looking forward, you'll feel like you are very hopeless, and you will like you're not making any progress. But just trust the process. And literally anything and everything is possible in life. You just have to try, because if somebody had told that timid boy who joined SSN back in 2010, like 12, and like who was literally afraid to talk to anyone and who stutters a lot, that you will be working at Microsoft and all of that, I wouldn't have believed myself. But anything is possible. You just have to do it. And yep, that's the crux of the path I took and the key takeaways. And the next thing is that um, let's start with the different aspects that are involved when you want to plan your career. Now, this with this, we start with the crux of the talk. So when you're planning your career, there are like multiple things you can consider. Like the first thing is, do you want to do a job or pursue higher studies right after like graduation? And if you want to pursue a job, do you want it to be purely engineering, or do you want it to be up like research based or applied research or stuff like that? Excuse me. Or if you want to pursue higher studies, it can be either master's or PhD. But like, and all of this, it depends on if you want to do it in India or if you want to do it abroad. And when you want to do it, like, do you want to immediately do masters after your graduation and then get a job, or do you want to work for 2 years and then do masters and then get a job? Like the timeline and all of that comes in the career planning. And and there are a lot of personal preferences to take into account too. I know a lot of people who don't want to leave India because they love it here, and they also don't want to leave their family alone here and go. And like that, like there are like multiple things like that which you want to consider when you're making your career decisions. So we'll go through the different career paths one can take from here. But before getting into that, I just want to put a small disclaimer that this entire talk is going to be a bit biased towards computer science and um, doing masters or getting a job in the United States. But most of the things I'm going to talk and like go through in this talk are going to be generic, and like it should translate to other countries and other domains as well. But just a heads up. And so, given all this, what are the potential career paths you could take, and mainly how to find what path suits you? So, to answer this question, you need to answer like this is like an extremely personal decision for every single one. I can't make the decision for everybody, but I can guide you through on how you want to make that decision. So, um, the main question to ask is, what is your end goal or motivation? Like what do you want to do in life? Like in 5 years, do you want to work as an engineer, or do you want to work in academia, or do you want to work like in some applied research position, or do you want to pursue a PhD, or do you want to do a postdoc? Like there are like lots of things and goals or motivations, or like you feel like you want to specialize in something like cybersecurity, machine learning, networking, operating systems. Like, do you want to specialize in something? And all of these are questions that only you can answer. And depending on that, you can choose your career path. So, I'll just list the top five career paths I think make sense for this audience. There are a million ways you could go about, but given the time constraints, I'm just going to just go through these five core paths and these five career paths. Sorry, and what should be your motivation when you want to take each one of them. So the first one is job in India. So given you don't want to leave India, you want to be with your family and friends, and you want to, but you still want to succeed in your career and do amazing in your career. Then like and that is when you like you should decide to do like pursue a job in India and not look at what other people are doing and regret about it, because you made that decision, and you must completely embrace it. Like I have seen a lot of people who pursue their job in India, but they want to but they keep dreaming for doing the other stuff. If you want to do it, I think you should take steps towards it and you should start moving to the other stuff. But working in India has become like I have worked in India for 2 years. I would have done it for even more because I loved working in India. Because of the kind of job I got to do at Cube. And if you're not liking it, I think you should reconsider your options. And the next thing is the job in India and then getting a job in abroad. So, like if your ultimate goal is to get a job abroad, either in the US or anywhere in the world, and if your ultimate aim is just that, and you don't want to specialize, especially in anything, or you don't want to learn anything in depth, I would say please don't take the master's route. Like, don't plan on doing master's first and then getting a job abroad, because I feel it's just a waste of time and money. If all your aim is just to pursue a job abroad, I would say get into one of the top companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, or whatever it may be, who have like a worldwide presence, like companies all over the world. Like, all you have to do is sharpen your programming skills, sharpen your design skills, and crack those interviews with practice. And once you get into these companies, you can work for a year or two and then apply for internal transfer and go to any other country in like any other team in any other country. Like, I know a lot of people who took this path and came to the US from Amazon through internal transfers. So that is totally a path you could take if your ultimate aim is to pursue a job and not to specialize on anything. Please don't do masters just for the sake of getting a job in the United States, because I feel this route is way more cheaper and makes sense if that's your aim. And the next thing is like, like right after graduation, do your masters or pursue higher studies and then a job abroad. You take this when you want to specialize in something, like say cyber security or machine learning, and you feel your undergrad education is not enough and you want to specialize in it so that you can get like a job in that niche. Then I would say definitely go ahead with a master's and pursue the job abroad. Um, um, the next thing would be first do a job in India for a year or two, and then pursue masters, and then like a job abroad. Um, so I took this path mainly because I didn't want to let go the opportunity I got to work with Cube, because it was really amazing those 2 years. And this path you can take if you want, like if you feel you're already in your third year or your fourth year and you don't have enough things to show in your profile, and but you still don't want to go into any ms like a university or school, but you wanted to go into specific top universities or schools. You can wait, do a job in India for a year or two, gather more experiences, be it research, work experience, projects, whatever it may be, gather more experiences, and then apply for a master's if you want to get into specific universities and not just any master's university. And then you finally get that job you have always wanted in your area of interest. So these are kind of roughly what and the next thing is directly job abroad. So this is also possible, but the percentage of people who get to do it is less, mainly because of the visa issues around. Like around you wanting to pursue your job abroad directly, but this is also totally a possible path. You could apply, or you could go through campus placements and get a job abroad directly in Japan or US or wherever it may be, if that is your ultimate goal. The main takeaway here is that I would say fix your end goal and work backwards from there, and do what makes sense time wise and financially as well. And as I already told, there are a million other ways to go about. You could start up, you could do civil services, you could do literally anything under the sky. But going through all of those potential career paths is going to take a lot of time. So I'm just going to cut short here and move on to the next slide. So the first thing we are going to see is, if you want to pursue higher education, be it master's or PhD, and be it any time, like after a job or like after UG or whatever it may be. I'm just going to go through the entire process of how you do it. And so the first thing here is profile building. So I feel like having like this is a like this process should take place throughout your undergrad. This cannot be done in just one day. So, whenever a university looks at your application, I feel they bucket them into these three buckets, like the different experiences you have into these three buckets, and they try to evaluate each of these buckets. The first one is the experiences you have gained through your internships, the projects, the research work you have done, all of the work experience you have got, the hackathons or any coding contests you have been to, like all of those experiences you have gained fall under this bucket. And the next bucket is the writing samples, mainly your statement of purpose and your resume and the letters of recommendation you get from your recommenders. I also feel research papers fall under this category, because they express how you can write technically and how technically sound you are. And the next bucket is scores. Like this is where all of your grades, your transcripts, your GRE, TOEFL, IELTS scores, etc. come under. You need to be strong in each and one of these buckets and be able to express what you want to do, um, uh, uh, like be able to show that you have done some work in each of these buckets. And it's fine if you're lacking in one of these buckets. It's totally fine. Like we can't expect everybody to have all of these. But if you're lacking in one bucket, make sure you compensate for it in the other bucket. Like for example, if you have low scores, try to gain more experiences and compensate for it. And if you have more experiences, that automatically translates into writing better SOPs and better resumes. So it's kind of a balance. You try to balance your application and your profile between these three buckets and try to hit the right proportions you want. So let's go into each and one of these buckets and how to prepare for each of these. So the first thing is scores. When we say scores, yeah, definitely having a great score helps, but that's not everything in your application. And having an average score is definitely not the end of the world. It's fine to have low scores, but still you can compensate for it in other parts of your application. So don't feel bad if you are not having great scores. And what tests should you take? If it is the US, you need to take the GRE and the TOEFL. And some universities, I think they accept IELTS, but IELTS is more common in Canada and Europe. It's the TOEFL equivalent. So the TOEFL and IELTS are basically going to check your verbal communication skills in writing, reading, and stuff like that. And GRE is going to test your quantitative aptitude and your verbal skills and your writing skills again. Um, so what were my scores? I had a CGPA of 8.56 and I got a GRE score of 324 in my fourth attempt. And and I had a 169 quant, and my TOEFL was 116 on 120. So what would I call uh, um, an amazing score, or what you should aim for is that having a CGPA of greater than 8.5 or GRE of greater than 320, with more focus on the quant score, because you're going to go into the engineering stream, and having a high quant score is more important than having a high verbal score. So it should be more than 168, and your TOEFL should be more than 110. So these numbers I'm specifying here are pretty high. I'm specifying them as very good scores. It doesn't mean that you need to get above these scores. I've seen a lot of people who scored less than these thresholds and got into amazing universities because they had like an amazing overall profile, be it from a work experience point of view, or be it from like a research point of view, or projects point of view, or internships. Like yeah, like each and every profile is unique, and these are just suggested scores. Just take them with a grain of salt, and don't stress too much about them if you don't. like what you should aim. That's all you should think about it. And so some prep and like how do you prep GRE and the TOEFL and some tips on how to prepare. So you could take classes like study on your like on your own. I've tried both. The taking classes part didn't work for me. I didn't find them that useful, but it depends from person to person. Some people will want people to teach them so that they can learn better. If you are that kind of a person, try taking the classes. But I feel self-study with the right material is more than enough for cracking both the GRE and the TOEFL. Um, and like what exactly worked for me the fourth time in the GRE and the second time in the TOEFL? Like what made the difference that broke my streak of getting 313s and 314s in the GRE? So I followed all of the official materials from ETS for both GRE and TOEFL, like not just the big book they give initially, but also all of the supplements for verbal and quants and stuff. They are very, very important. They help me a lot learn all of these holistically. And for GRE in specific, I found the premium Magoosh account super helpful because it had so many questions and they had explanation videos and stuff. And it gave me a lot of tips, like tips and tricks on how to solve questions faster. And then comes the Manhattan 5LB, which is like a set of practice problems for quants. And that is also like a verbal practice set. All of these helped a lot. And when it comes to TOEFL, Noteful.com is the Bible for preparing. And Barron's TOEFL IBT, you can use it to take mock tests. I think they have around 10 mock tests, which you can take to practice your TOEFL skills. So once you practice for GRE, cracking the TOEFL is going to be easier because most of the things you learn for the verbal section of GRE translates to the TOEFL. Um, and taking the TOEFL should be comparatively quicker and easier than the GRE. And some tips like around this would be the timing matters because if you're given the same GRE test and given 8 hours, I bet everybody would get like 100% score. But that's not what the GRE tests. The GRE tests if you're able to get the questions right within the given time. So I would say you need to learn all of the techniques and shortcuts involved in solving the problems and take as many mock tests as possible and keep practicing regularly until you are able to crack the time. And how long should you be practicing for? It depends from person to person. Some people might be already very well versed in quants. They might just go and take the GRE without any preparation and score high. But there are people who need like some refreshing, and it might take just 3 months for them. But I think around 6 months should be a good time for practicing for the GRE and giving the test, and it shouldn't take more than that. And one main thing which I learned the hard way is please do not send all of your scores if you took the GRE more than once. I did that mistake the first time, and what happened was the universities have access to your scores for 5 years. And even if you get a better score the next time you're applying or in your next attempt, the universities are still going to have your history, and that will look like a black mark in your application because you tried taking the GRE multiple times and you still didn't get a good score. And I think that's what hurt all of my applications the first time I applied for masters and got rejected by all the universities. So please don't do that. Just choose the best one and send them. I did that because I got more quant score in one version and more verbal score in the other version. So I thought they will pick the best from all three attempts of mine, but that's not the case. It hurts your application badly. Um, and the next thing is writing samples. So that's all I had for the scores part of it. Um, And so in scores, like with your CGPA and stuff, if you have a low CGPA, don't worry about it. Again, compensate for it in other ways. But yeah, I think you guys are all very lucky to be under an like under SSN, which is autonomous. But back then we had to deal with Anna University, and that was a huge headache for a lot of us, and we were finding it very hard to get top scores, like top CGPAs. Um, um, and the next thing is the writing samples, or like how to write your statements of purpose. So the like this like the statement of purpose, I feel, is the most important part of your application, because that is the only place where you get to talk and express about your true self to the admissions committee. And this is and this is something that's very unique and personal to each applicant. So giving out a template that will suit for everybody is going to be impossible. It is about why you want to pursue masters at their specific university. Like, you try to answer the why question there. And you need to make sure that you personalize these to each university. When I mean personalize, you need not write a new SOP for every single one. Have like at least two paragraphs, or like one paragraph that you change in your SOP for every single university, so that the SOP looks personalized for every single one. And what are some good points to address in your SOP? In general, according to me, like, what is a good SOP is that you need to explain on what inspires you and what keeps you going, and why should they admit you, and what is very unique about yourself that they should admit you. And it's basically telling a story about the journey you took so far, and finally what led you to decide to pursue your master's or PhD. And uh, like uh, like, you need to also answer the specific question of why you want to pursue the master's degree or the PhD degree in their university. Like what labs are there in the university that impressed you? Like, what research papers, or what coursework impressed you the most in the university? Like why you want to go to this specific university should also be answered here. And I would say it usually takes about a month or two to write a perfect SOP, like a final draft, and it needs to be vetted by a lot of people, for grammar, for impact, and for like how uh, coherent your SOP is. So um, you can get help from your seniors, like people who are already in the university, and you're the faculty, and like anybody who has experience with reading SOPs or writing SOPs. You can ask them to proofread. It can be your friends, like it can be anybody, but just proofread multiple times. And the next thing is, in writing samples, is writing the letters of recommendation. So when I say letters of recommendation, like, what are they? So they are basically letters written by the people whom you have worked with, or who know you personally or your work personally, and are able to vouch for your skill sets, the work you have done, and all of the like all of your capabilities and stuff, in a form of letter. So one thing I've seen happen is, many recommenders ask the students to write the LORs, and they just sign them and send them. But I would recommend never ever write your own LORs. Insist the recommenders write the LOR for you. You can give them talking points or what you want to be covered in the letter of recommendation as just points, but never write the full letter, because the universities can blatantly look at your LORs and figure out the writing patterns match between your SOP and LOR, that you wrote your own LORs, and that's going to be a negative sign. If you really don't have a choice and you want to write your own LOR, I would suggest, writing it first, reading it out to one of your friends, and then like asking your friend to write their own version of what they heard from you. So that it sounds different, but this is not advice. I'm just giving like a workaround. Um, and like how to choose who you want like as your recommenders. It can be a mix of people from academia and industry, like from your previous internships or research assistantships, or your managers in your current work, or like previous work experience, like whatever it like professors. Like it can be literally anybody who has had first-hand experience with your work and with the skill sets you have. And it's best to have a personal connection with them, um, because like when a person who you barely know writes a letter for you, it's not going to be that impactful. And I recommend you identify potential recommenders very early on and start building like a good relationship with them, be it professors at SSN or anywhere. And when time comes, request an LOR from them. They'll be more than happy to write one for you. And LORs from high profile people help a lot with and it can be a huge plus in your application. Like one of the things that changed the second time I applied was I got an LOR from the CTO of Cube, and it was like a very heartfelt and very impactful LOR that boosted my application as a whole, I guess. And the professors are generally not that great the with the deadlines for each university and when they have to submit your letters. So it is your responsibility to keep them in loop, keep them informed, and keep like reminding them at regular cadences to submit the LORs. Um, so before I jump into the next section, I would like to pause for a second for questions. You may have until this point because I've been talking for a long time now without a break. So if you have any questions, do let me know. Um, Sorry about the delay, guys. I think the questions need to be copy pasted from the YouTube live stream into the Teams chat window, and that's taking some time. Um, cool. I think we don't have any questions at this point, so I'm just going to continue with the next things. So after writing samples, the main thing is the experience. So like there are different ways you could gain these experiences. Like you could like you could like do it via internships, research projects, like projects you do in college, like the funded projects we get to do, like participating in hackathons, programming contests, and industry experience. Like anything that gives you a peek into the real world of programming or makes you do something in a structured way, like other than your regular college work, can count towards experiences. And I suggest you start early, ideally from second year in college. But don't worry if you are late in the process, if you're already in your third year or stuff like that. Please don't think that you don't have time to build your profile or something like that. Like if you start early, it's just that you don't have to rush everything. You can take your own time and build these experiences slowly. But if you wait till the last minute, you might want to rush everything, and you will feel so overwhelmed in the end. So I suggest starting early. But if you are already in your fourth year and you feel that you need to have more experiences, then the call is yours. Like if you are fine with getting into any university, like not specifically the top universities, I would say just go ahead and apply and you should be good. But if you are aiming for any specific university or specific or like very specific specializations that you want in a university or something like that, I would say take some time, either work as a research assistant or take up a job, work for a year or two, build more experiences, and then apply. Because I feel that like going for masters is going to be a huge financial commitment, and you want to do it at a place where you love the most and not just any place. And uh, like try to gain more experiences around your area of interest, because that's going to help you not only in getting into the specialization you want for your for your masters, but also after that in all of your jobs you are going to want to do this. Because when you go for your job interviews and when you want to work in a specific area, like in my case it was machine learning, so gaining experience in that area is going to help you all along your career. And the main thing with these experiences is that the contacts in the peer network you gain from them are so invaluable, and it's so underrated. It helps you get impactful LORs from your managers or whoever, the professors or whoever were part of the experience you went through. And also like you get to know what the different people you like with you are currently doing. Like you get to grow with your peers from, like if you went for an internship and you built a friend group there, you will get to know what they are doing, what their next steps are, and you can try to grow with them. And all of that stuff happens. And this just gives you great things to write in your statement of purpose. And you can and you should actually document all of your work in some place in the appropriate format. Like it can be, if it's code, it can be on GitHub. If it's some certification you did, it can be on LinkedIn. If it's some personal project, like document in a blog or a personal website. If you did some research, try to publish it. If not, it should be fine if you can at least publish it to archive, if not a specific journal, because just getting your work out is what matters. And research papers are like, I've seen a lot of papers, like my main industry paper is still archived; it's not published yet. So it's just that you need to document all your work, and it can even be on YouTube if you gave a talk or something like that. And the next thing, like I got a lot of questions about this in the registration form, was that how do I plan my finances? So when you want to plan your finances, there are like multiple things to consider. I'll try to go through each one of them now. So the first thing is, how much does it cost to do a master's in the US? It's going to cost anywhere around 40 lakhs to 90 lakh INR. Like it can be less than this, it can be more than this, but this is what I have seen my friends, like in my friend circle, like people spend. And is it worth it? Um, Well, again, it comes around to the question that if you want to really specialize in something and not want to do a generic job, like a generic software engineering job, and you want to specialize in something, I would say go ahead, spend the money, and get the specialization and work in your area of interest. Because doing a job that you don't like is going to be hurtful for all your life. So I would say just get the specialization you want and work in what you love, so that the work you do doesn't seem like a burden. And the next thing is how to pay for it. So like there are three things you could do. Like you could take a full loan if you feel like you don't want to burden your parents, or if you feel like you are not financially stable enough to be able to support all of that, the funds. You could take a full loan, or you could or the next thing is, if you have some savings, or if your parents have some savings, from like imagine you work for a year or two, you will have some savings, and you can use part of that and part loan. And the next thing is using full savings, be it from your parents or be it from like your own savings or whatever. But I would say if you can afford it, I would say don't hesitate to take money from your parents. Just do it, and after you complete, you can even pay them back. But taking a loan is going to be like 10% interest, and that's gonna cost so much down the line. So if you have the ability to do full savings, I would say go for it. But yeah, so how long does it take to clear these loans if you take one? So on a software engineer salary, which is on an average of like above $100,000 minimum in Seattle, or even more in California and New York, it's going to take you somewhere around 6 months to 1.5 years, depending on the amount of loan you have taken and the kind of lifestyle you're living, doing your job and stuff like that. It can be even sooner. But this is roughly the time I have seen people take to completely settle their loans. But with the salaries you will be getting here, it shouldn't take several years. It should be sooner than that. And how to reduce out of pocket costs. So I have some tips on how you can support your own education. So the first thing is to try to complete your master's sooner. So people who really feel like they have some like financial constraints that they can't do the full three full semesters and one part-time semester, which is the usual thing, you can opt for just doing three full semesters and completing all your coursework, or just two full semesters and, sorry, that's a typo, just one part-time semester. um, so, like it depends on how much of workload you are able to take and how much of time you're able to manage to get this done. But I've seen people do all of like in just 3 semesters, or two full semesters and one part-time semester, and all of these parts are totally possible. And doing this effectively reduces the amount you have to pay per semester. And one catch here is what people don't understand is that when you pay for the three full semesters, you pay so much more higher. But when you convert to a part-time student, you just pay very less compared to what you paid for your full semester. So it's not going to cost the same for your last semester of your master's. And the next thing is working part-time. You could take up part-time jobs at the university for being a course assistant, a teaching assistant, or pursue any research assistantships, or any other campus job for that matter, which will give you money, which you can put towards your monthly expenses and rent in the US. But a big word of caution here is that if you feel that doing all of this is coming in your way of doing a master's effectively and making the fullest use of it, I would suggest don't do it. because the main reason you came to the US was to pursue masters and to specialize on something, and or to learn something in depth. So if you're not able to do that, there is no point in trying to work part time and cutting costs. I would say bear the costs now and then pay them down the line later. Um, so yeah, and the next thing is the summer internship stipends are pretty handsome. So you can literally pay off one full semester or at least a part semester fee with what you get paid for that internship stipend. Like as an internship stipend, and these top companies pay really good amounts for interns, like almost the same as what they pay an entry level engineer. And doing all this, I've seen people being able to reduce very expensive codes like 80 lakhs into 55 lakhs out of pocket costs, or even less if you're able to complete quicker. This is for people who did it three full semesters and one part-time semester. So it's going to be um, like the numbers you see are not what you're going to be paying out of pocket if you try to optimize in these ways. So the next thing is how much money should you plan on a minimum to have as liquid assets in bank or loan or stuff like that. I would say 1.5 times the amount specified on your I-20. So I-20 is a document that the university gives which specifies their expected yes, like the money you have to spend for your master's degree, including tuition expenses and stuff. And you need to prove that you have at least that money arranged in any form, be it your parents' bank account, or your bank account, or loan documents and stuff. I would say aim for 1.5 times that to be on a safer side. But yeah, so that's about financial planning. And the next thing is about university shortlisting. So when you say university shortlisting, there are like multiple things that go around it. So first, find the top universities for your specific specialization or your area of domain or interest or whatever. There are multiple ways you could do it. You could ask the alumni from the universities. You could look for posts on blogs and Quora. You could get the rankings from websites like US News Ranking, US World University Rankings. But none of these are like the final list. Like these are just sources of where you can get the top universities from. And once you have a good list of universities, then you research about these universities and rank them on like based on how difficult is it to get into them, or based on how much you like these universities. So how do you research? So I would suggest talking to current students at the university or alumni from these universities, and you could go through their websites and understand the coursework they have, the professors and the research labs they have, and all of their publications. And one other main factor to consider is the cost of studying at each university, because that's going to be a huge thing. And filter the ones that interest you and rank them based on how much you like them, and how much you think um, uh, like okay, let me go to the next point to explain that better. So when you're shortlisting the universities, I would say go for, like, I've seen people do 5 to 15 universities. But a word of caution here: the shorter the list, the better the quality of your application will be. Because you need to customize each of your application, and you get to do more customizations if the if the university list is smaller. But it's a personal preference. You can do whichever feels appropriate in your case. And I would say group these universities into three categories. Ambitious ones are the ones which are extremely out of your scope, because like either they require high scores or they require like research paper, like something like that, like something which you don't have. But usually the people who get into those universities seem to have that, and the moderate ones are just at your level, so you can get them or not get them, but they are exactly at your profile level, and the safe ones are the ones below your profile level and the ones you will definitely get. So the majority of the universities should be moderate and safe, and a few ambitious ones which you just want to give a try um, can be in that. I'm not going to give percentages on how each category should be, but it all depends from person to person. In my case, I applied to a lot of ambitious universities and just one like a few moderate universities because I didn't want to do masters in just any university. I wanted to do it in specific ones. And how do you evaluate your profile and decide if a university is ambitious or moderate for yourself? You can go to websites like Edulix, Grad Cafe, Yocket, and even ask the alumni in the university to get a good sense of what kind of profiles get into those universities and compare that with your profile and decide if it's safe or moderate or ambitious for you. Edulix and Grad Cafe have been extremely useful resources in my case. Yocket has a lot of spam, so I would say take it with a grain of salt. But I have seen Edulix and Grad Cafe being relatively more reliable. And also keep in mind that for each and every university you add to your list, you also need to consider the application fees, sending the GRE TOEFL scores, the transcripts. Like it's going to cost maybe around like $25 to $100 for each application, and the GRE scores, like sending them, cost $25 or something. Like so, consider all of that as well when you shortlist universities. And the next thing is, how do you keep track of the different moving pieces? Like applying for masters is like there are like multiple moving pieces to it. How do you keep track of everything? How do you stay organized and don't miss deadlines? So in my case, I created a Excel sheet like this, which you see here, and I have inserted some sample rows so that it looks more readable. So I would suggest creating a similar Excel sheet. I'll share these slides after the talk so that you can look at them at your own pace. But yeah, like it basically tracks the deadlines for the different stuff, like your application deadlines, your GRE TOEFL, like when were your GRE TOEFL scores sent, what were the institution codes, what were the application fees, when was the fees paid, and were all of your LOR submitted on time, and did you send all the packages required like your transcripts and stuff? Are there any additional documents like video essays that you need to submit for the university? And when you submitted the application, and is it an ambitious, mod, or safe university for you? And keep track of the results, the admit, reject results, and the login info, and the labs and professors that interested you in that particular university. And you can even mail these professors during the application process to know more about their labs or to get research assistantships at their labs, even when you're in the process of applying. Um, or after your applications. Like I did it after application, like after applying, I tried contacting all the professors that I like so that I can have a relationship with them and get research assistantships with them beforehand or something like that. And yeah, so the next thing is, let's look at a sample application timeline, like how it looks, like when you need to start doing all of this process, like what is the timeline look like? So I'm not going to go through all the career paths, just one, which is after UG, you directly go for masters and then a job abroad, and especially for the fall admits. And this is going to consider that you do 3 full semesters and 1 part-time semester. So how does the timeline look? So the timeline looks like this. So the thing is, you start in the top left. So like at this point, you basically have um, like in your first, second, and third years, you concentrate on profile building. And this profile building phase not only helps for your masters, but also helps if you want to directly do a job after your graduation because the experiences you gain are definitely going to be useful when you talk through like your interviews in the HR round or the project rounds or the design rounds you have. It's going to definitely help you. So build your profile, build like have different experiences, like have like we saw the three buckets that go into profile building. Just build your profile in all three buckets, and once you reach the end of the third year, I would say by then it's good to have your GRE and TOEFL completed, because that just clears off your mind of the fact that you have to take these tests and it just keeps bugging you. So it's better to do it at the end of the third year, and TOEFL has a 2 year expiry and GRE has 5 year expiry. Just keep that in mind. And once you reach your fourth year, um, in like around June to September is when you start finalizing your profile, and you start with the university shortlisting, talking with people, and like getting ready your SOP templates, your CV, getting a list of potential recommenders for your LOR and notifying them. And around September, October is when you start your applications, and around November, December is when most of the application deadlines are. So you submit your applications. I would suggest submitting them early because some universities have rolling admissions, and submitting early makes a difference in that case. And in general, too, it's better to submit earlier than later. So don't hold on until the last time. And like after submitting your applications, I would say go ahead and contact the professors at these universities and start looking at the visa process and get familiar with all of that in January to April. And around the March, May timeline, you will start getting the admit results as well. I would say once you start getting these, start preparing for your summer internships in the US, because I didn't do it and I didn't have time to prepare for my summer internships once I was in the US. So when you are in India itself, I would say just start preparing for your summer internships, start doing lead code, start doing competitive programming, and get a resume ready for your job in the US already, because you won't have time to build your resume once you're in the US. It'll be so overwhelming. I learned it the hard way, but yeah. And once you're like in the May, July timeframe, that's when you complete all of your I-20 processing, F1 visa processing, and getting all of the funds ready and starting to look for housings and roommates, and preparing for your summer internship. And in your first semester in the US, that's when the like in August to September the university is open. You travel, and around September November is I would suggest start applying for the internships. Don't wait until late, because these applications people just start very early, and these applications like get closed very soon as well. So I would say starting like immediately after going to the US, you start applying for summer internships. And your internships in like interviews might start around November, and once you're in the second semester from January to March, your internship interviews will be on full swing. In general, December, November end and December, people in the US don't work because of Thanksgiving and Christmas. So keep that in mind when you're applying for your internships and expecting your internship interview calls. And around April, May, you will be getting an offer. You finalize it on where you're going, and around May, June, or like until August, September, you do your summer internship and you get a return offer. So if you get a return offer, you are in a safe spot. You already have like a full-time job. If not, take the time during your semester 3 and 4 to search for a full-time job, or if you want a better full-time job, use this time to from September to March to again search, apply. The entire process comes in here, like what you did the internship. And in May you graduate, and around June, July you join your job. So this is kind of the rough timeline. I'm just going to leave it in the slides in case you want to look at it later. So the next section is job search. I'm going to wait for questions now before I get into this. Okay, I think we have one. Okay, I think we have a few. So the first one is, which is the best time to take up GRE for someone who is not planning to join MS immediately after UG, during the eighth semester or during work? Also, can you tell the difference between the two intakes, fall or spring? Okay. So if you're planning to take like work in India before you want to do your masters and you want to figure out when you want to do your GRE, I would say do it in your eighth semester, because once you start your job, it's going to be so overwhelming to manage a full-time job and also like practice and take the GRE or profile building or applying for masters. It's going to take so much effort. Be prepared for it, because I went through it. It's going to take sleepless nights to do that. But if you get your GRE thing cleared in your eighth semester when you're free, you have one less thing to worry about during your job. So I would take like I would say take the GRE early, but TOEFL is like it will only have 2 years expiry, so take it around the time you will be applying. It should be an easier test compared to GRE. And the difference between these two intakes, fall and spring, I would suggest always go for the fall intake, because the job cycle here in the US is tuned for that. Like when you come in a spring intake, by that time people would have already started getting their summer internship interview calls. Like the spring intake starts in January. When you come in January, people would have already started to get job offers for their summer internships, and it's a very odd time to join. And you will I would say the fall is the best intake if you want to sync with the job cycle here in the US. And we have another question, which is, how does one get to know his interest? In your case, ML, there are lots of fields. How did you narrow it down to ML? Okay. So this question I saw a lot of people ask in the registration forms as well. I was going to answer them last, but I think I'll answer them now. So the thing is, in my case, I knew what machine learning and AI was from 12th standard, but I had no idea what it meant to build an AI model or ML model. But I just knew it's something interesting. Only once I started working on it, I realized that I was able to spend sleepless nights on it and not get tired of it. And I was enjoying doing that. So you like, unless and until you try something out, you will never be able to narrow down to what you want to do and like what interests you the most. So if you think, like, take the top three things that look very interesting to you, try doing a project in it, try doing some actual work on it, like trying pursuing an internship or trying experiencing what it is to be in that domain. And if that excites you so much so that you are able to stay sleepless, and you are able to uh, like have fun doing it and have fun um, like working, then I think that is your domain of interest. Like whatever you love doing, you won't find it like it's a chore you have to do, or it's a responsibility. You will enjoy doing it. Um, and there is another question from like, that is that does the location of the university play a huge factor when you're searching for a job? Um, so this question I think was also in the registration form. So the thing is, um, the location, at least for the software engineering domain, I don't think it matters at all, because given that everything is becoming remote lately, and also that like all of these, like I was in the East Coast where not all of these top companies are there, but I applied to all of the top companies and got interview calls from all of them, and they literally paid paid my like a full expense trip and they took me to the West Coast to their offices to interview, and then the interviews happened in the West Coast. So I would say the location doesn't matter at all, because the companies don't mind flying you in like into their campuses and taking their interviews or doing it remote, and all of the applications are online. So I would say don't sweat about the location of the university. Um, I think that's all the questions for now. I'm not getting any more, so I'm going to assume that's all. And so, so the next thing is job search. So just give me a second. So yeah, so I'm going to focus this part of the talk around US and India because that's the both the job markets are the ones I have seen. I'm not going to focus into other countries because I don't want to claim something which I don't know. And but most of these stuff should translate roughly to other countries as well. It's not something that's very specific and all of that. The most of the things I'm going to talk about is going to be very generic. So the first thing here in job search is how do you apply for jobs? In India, we just take it for granted that we have these campus placements and companies come to the college and they conduct interviews and you get a job offer. That is literally a boon. You don't get that kind of thing in the US. There is no concept of campus placements. At max, you get career fairs. And these career fairs happen around September, October, immediately after you go to the US. And they are just networking events, like where the top companies, like all companies, like not just the top companies, like all of the software companies, including the top companies, come with their employees. You just get to talk to them, talk about their work, see if it interests you, introduce yourself, and just submit your resume and go back. If they feel your resume looks good, they will give you a call back for an interview later. But that's all the career fairs are. So that there is no concept of campus placements in the US university. So you're all on your own to apply for jobs. So how do you find and apply for these jobs? So there are multiple places you could go look for. Like I've found LinkedIn, Indeed, and all of the job portals and the direct company websites, and even posts by people whom I know on LinkedIn who post job openings in their companies and all of that being very, very useful. And that's how I found the jobs and applied for them online. And some tips here are make sure you have only a one page, not two-sided, just like one side printed, just one page resume, and make sure it's machine readable because they have these automatic filtering systems which look for keywords in your resume and match it with the job description. And if it doesn't match it, they just reject your resume without even a human looking at your resume. So it's very, very critical to make your resume machine readable and make sure that it aligns with the job description if you want to get a call. And always have an updated LinkedIn profile because that's literally what got me my interview call from Microsoft. I did not apply for Microsoft. Microsoft contacted me after looking at my profile on LinkedIn, and they wanted to fly me in for an interview in Seattle, and that's how it happened. So have an updated like a LinkedIn profile always. And having a GitHub profile and personal website helps a lot. But I didn't have a personal website. So don't sweat about it, but definitely do document all of your code and projects on GitHub because that's what literally was another reason why I got my job at Cube. Because they were looking at my GitHub profile and they were impressed at all of my projects and stuff, even my personal projects, which I did on my own time and not just the ones during my internships. And if you're in India, I would say still apply for job openings outside the placements. Don't just restrict yourselves for stuff within placements. Like there's no written rule that you shouldn't apply for other startups and companies. So just see if you like a startup or like a company, and network with a lot of people on LinkedIn, and just apply and take interviews outside as well, because there's nobody stopping you from doing that. And these online job portals, which we are going to be applying on, have very, very low success rates. Maybe 1% to 10% of those people contact you for an interview. That's pretty sad. That's like a pretty sad state to be in. I never understood what to do. So I just, like when I was applying, I just kept submitting applications, and I felt like they were just going into a black hole and nobody responded to any of them. Um, and what, like, I remember applying to 400, 500 job openings and just getting 5 or 10 callbacks. Like, it was such a pathetic state to be in. But I realized that this was the totally wrong way to go about applying for jobs. So what should what should you guys do when you're applying for jobs? Like, you still apply on these job portals, but don't have that as your primary mode. Your primary mode should be networking and referrals. So how do you network? So this method has a very high success ratio. So you basically contact your alumni, your previous colleagues from companies, or seniors, or even random people on LinkedIn who work on companies that you like, and just ask them for a referral politely. The max they would say is a no. So please don't hesitate. I've seen a lot of juniors come up to me and ask, how do I contact a random person and ask them for a referral? Just do it. That's all. Because at max they will say no or won't reply to your email. But if it succeeds, if you send to a 10 people, if you send to 10 people, one person might refer you, and that's a win. So, and contact the recruiters or hiring managers directly instead of trying to applying for jobs on their website. In here, the LinkedIn's in-mail feature helps, and try activating the trial period for premium account until you have the job, until you get a job offer, or if you need to get premium. I think LinkedIn emails are like a great way to contact recruiters and hiring managers directly. And some tips on building your professional network is, whenever you go for a conference or talk, mingle with people. Like, in any professional setting, talk with people, get to know them on a personal level, get their contact information, have a working relationship with them, and you can later convert that into a referral. And this is the power of networking and referrals. And you definitely get a lot of calls via this method because there is a human involved in the loop, and you are sure to get like a job, like a interview call back. Um, and once you have your interview call, the next thing is, how do you prepare for your interviews? So, like the well-known fact, if it's a software engineering interview, it's going to be practice competitive programming, like practice that muscle well ahead, and like practice is the only thing that you could do to get your competitive programming skills up. And the last talk from SSN-ACM was pretty good on covering all of the stuff that you need for computer programming, I guess. And I'm not going to get into that, but yeah. Um, and one more thing is, apart from these competitive programming core questions, one other type of core question is the architecture design type of questions, which you need to be familiar with. I'll go through how you prepare for them soon, but you just need to know that you need to prepare for these two if you are like expecting to get into top companies. And also know about your previous projects and experiences well, because you will be questioned about them during your interviews. Either let it be the HR interview or any non-technical interview, you will be interviewed. So be up to date with them. You shouldn't be stammering around trying to answer stuff on what you already did, and that would be a pretty bad state to be in. And I would say know about the company, the role, and the team you're going to interview with beforehand. Like, how do you do that? Go to the company's website, look at what they are working on, like, go to LinkedIn, look at what people are working on, find which team you are going to be interviewed by, look at the other people currently working in that team, look for the job description. Like, you should try to gather as much as information as far possible to get a clear picture of what the interviewers will be looking in you and will be expecting from you, and what the company's culture is and stuff like that. And if you have a specialization area and if you feel that you will be interviewed around that, always be strong with all the basics around that area, because even though you're not you might not be asked to code around those things, you will still need to be up to date with all of that and know the interview process. So people like the interview process differs from company to company, but it's not going to change very majorly. They'll usually have a programming round, an architecture design round, a HR round, a round with the manager, and like some filtering or a phone screening. Like, yeah, like there are some template steps in the process, but to get the actual sense of what the interview process looks like and what the company scores you on, or what the company looks in you, or um, uh, you need to look for in platforms like Glassdoor or in forums or discussion sections in Lead Code, or you can directly ask people working in the company to get more information around that. And I think we have a quick question which we'll try to answer before we jump to the next slide. So, how does one scope out good internships both through college and otherwise? I quite don't understand this question, but I'm going to take a hit. So how does one scope out good internships both through college and otherwise? Um, so I'm assuming you are asking how do you uh, get good internships, like either through college or through applying by yourself. So I would say how I did it was I just like I was interested in machine learning and NLP or computer vision. So I just look for startups working in that area, because I can't expect a big company to give me a machine learning role without having any prior experience. So I had to go with startups. So I directly looked at the job pages of these startups and I just contacted them directly, like just email them and ask them if they have any internship positions or stuff like that. And you basically can also look for such internship positions in your LinkedIn network or contact people working in the company to refer to refer you for an internship, or you could apply to all of the academic internships, like like my first internship with CMU. Like there is some, like all the foreign universities do some stuff, and you should be able to find more information on all that with just a Google search, I guess. But you have multiple ways to get information on different kinds of internships you want to do. It need not be just through college. I'm talking about totally outside college, because all my internships, like most of them were like, yeah, literally all of them were outside college. I didn't get anything through college, but yeah, like except for my final job offer, all my internships were like kind of unconventional, I would say. Like, for example, the hackathon I did, and the like one of the judges got impressed, and then I got the research assistantship at Institute of Mathematical Sciences. So that's the main reason I always keep saying seize the opportunity you get. No opportunity, like if you feel that the opportunity has potential, don't think twice. Just take it, fake it until you can make it, and you will succeed in your thing. And we have one more question. Can you give some details about scholarships in USA? So I was going to answer this question soon. So the thing is, when you're pursuing your master's, In universities like many universities, like almost, like I'm not sure of the percentages, but many of them, for at least the master's category, they don't give any scholarships. But there are a lot of universities that do give scholarships for master's students, and those universities might require you to submit additional documents or like samples with your application. Like, for example, I remember CMU asking me to send in a video essay explaining about one of my projects and why I want to join CMU and stuff like that, which was optional, and I had to do it if I want to be considered for for a scholarship or something like that. So some universities do give scholarships for the master's students, but the students get their all of their coursework fully sponsored, and they also get stipends. So that's an entirely different scenario. People always like, if you feel like you are ready for a PhD, you could take that path, go ahead, do your masters. Like, on your way to completing a PhD, you should also do a masters. So in 2 years, you can get your master's degree fully sponsored because you got a PhD. It will be fully sponsored. And if you feel that PhD is not your jam, I would just drop off with just a master's degree and just get a job after that. So I've seen a lot of people do that as well. Um, so you can consider that as an option if you really want a scholarship or if you really want funding from the university. I would say apply for like a PhD, try to get out after a master's. And another question is on details on work-life balance in USA, expenditures, and how much can we save. Okay, work-life balance in USA is going to heavily depend on the company you're going to be working with. Um, and even in a given company, it's not very standard. It's going to be very team dependent, because these huge companies like Microsoft or Google or whatever it may be, they are technically just hundreds of startups under one roof, I would say, because each and every org and each and every team has their own like way of work-life balance and stuff. So it heavily is dependent. I'll go through how the work-life balance is like was at Cube, Microsoft, and Amazon in the later part of the talk. But yeah, and expenditures and how much can we save. So expenditures heavily depends on where you are staying. So uh, and your salary is also adjusted if the expenditures are high. Like in California, the taxes are high, and so your salary is also a bit higher than a person who is working from Seattle. And the rent is going to be the huge portion of your expenditure here. It's I would say on an average, a new grad would get anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 as starting salary, before taxes. I mean, this is not after tax, per month. And after taxes, it's going to be pretty less. It's going to be around $6,000 or something like that. And wait a minute. Or am I? Yeah, it should be something around that. And your rent will be around $1,500 to $2,000 in that. So that's going to be the huge portion of your expenditure. But apart from that, depending on your lifestyle, depending on how much you want to travel, how much you want to save, and all that, you can save pretty well. And as we are talking about this, I just realized I just skipped the part of my experience at Johns Hopkins, or in general doing a master's. I'll just quickly go through that before we jump into the next slide. So my experience at Hopkins was very rewarding, I would say, because of all the opportunities I got to work with some of the top people in the deep learning field, and I got to work with people on building search engines, and which is what I'm currently doing at Microsoft, like from scratch. You can and all of that, and the courses you take at your masters are going to be totally different. You like I took all project related courses, and I don't remember writing an exam in during my master's life. All of that was code. Like all my assignments were code. All of my like final exams were projects, and it's completely application, like it's based on application. So it's very application heavy, and the courses like operating systems, um, which we which was even hard when we did our undergrad, is going to be super hard in your masters, because that's considered as one of the top, like the very difficult courses across all universities, because you literally are asked to build the different components of an operating system from scratch. You have to write code from scratch, and that all of that is like extremely great experiences you get when you're doing your masters, and you get to work with like you get to be teaching assistants, you get to be course assistants, like that are like a lot of experiences you gain in the process. And yeah, so I think that's we're done with the questions too. So I'm just going to go ahead with the next slide. So the next slide is how do you tackle a coding interview? So this coding, I'm going to assume this is going to be like a normal competitive programming based coding interview. I'm not going to go into competitive programming itself. Just a second. But I'm technically going to talk through the process, or how you should be tackling the interview itself on the interview day. So the first thing is, the recruiter comes up. Sorry, the interviewer comes up to you and he presents the questions to you and he explains them. So the first thing you do is try to understand the question and rephrase or repeat the same question back to the interviewer, and ask all sorts of questions you have and clear all the ambiguity around the question you just got, because you don't want to be working on like you don't want to be writing code for something which the interviewer didn't even ask for in the first place. So repeating the question back to the interviewer and clearing all your ambiguity is step one. So step two is confirm all of the inputs and outputs. So I would say write down some samples. If you're doing it on a whiteboard, write it on a whiteboard. If you're doing it on a white paper, write it on a white paper. But have it written down and identify all the edge cases and confirm that given this input, this is what the output we expect with the interviewer. You should be as vocal as possible with the interviewer and explaining the different approaches you have before implementing them. So don't jump into directly implementing them. Quickly explain the different approaches you have, and tell them which you feel is the best of these approaches, and ask them if you like if they feel good with you implementing that first. If they say yes, then go ahead and start implementing. So when you start coding, I would say um, keep talking out loud and explain the process that's going on in your mind as you type code. The main thing that these interviews look for is your problem solving skills and your thought process more than the getting the actual output. So be sure to talk out loud, and this is only for in-person interviews. If you're doing some online interview, you definitely need to get the output. And even in these interviews, you should definitely get the output finally. But the weightage is that the thought process that went into you getting the final solution matters most. And then after writing your code down, more in most cases, people won't expect the code to execute just out of the box. It's just going to be, it need not be very syntactically correct, but it should be looking good. And then you test the code with the samples you just wrote, with the sample inputs you just wrote down before, and just walk through the code step by step, line by line, and explain what's happening at each stage. And once you're done with that, I would say the next thing is to talk about the time and space complexities and the bigger notations around that, and explain about the approach you have, and explain how you will be optimizing this algorithm if you are given a very large data set in place of these smaller inputs. And this is also a very critical piece most companies look for. And the next thing is, if it is a multi-part question, or if the interviewer has any follow-up questions, they will let you know, and you need to repeat the entire process again for that. And that's the general thing that happens on the interview day when you're trying to tackle a coding interview. And the next thing is the architecture or design interviews. These interviews get talked about very less. I would say these need to have we need to give more importance to these interviews as well, because these do happen in the top companies. Not just computer programming is enough. So some examples of these questions are, they might just blatantly come and ask you, design a clone for Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, Dropbox. Or they might ask you stuff like design a URL shortener, web crawler. With these questions, they are effectively not looking for you to code anything at all. They don't expect you to code at all, literally. They only mainly, like in most cases, at least, they don't expect you to code. So that what they expect is, they want you to discuss, and they want to have a discussion with you at an architecture level. You need to talk your mind out, and you need to draw block diagrams on a whiteboard or a paper and keep explaining the architecture which you will be using, and the different components you will be using to design the system you have in mind. This is just to gauge your engineering skills. And these might seem difficult, but actually they are pretty simple, because all you need to know is know how stuff works. Like, what is a load balancer? Like, you just need to know the definitions of these. Like, what is a load balancer? What are the different data structures you could use, like queues, stacks, and what are the different what is a microservice architecture? What is a DNS, CDN? Like, you just need to know these concepts, and you don't even need to know how to implement them. You don't even need to know how to get them to work in the first place. All you need to know is what they do, and you can just draw them as block diagrams and just explain how you would design the system. And the last step after your interviews, you will also be having your manager round, your HR round, and all of that, where you talk through your projects and stuff. But there is not many interesting things I can talk about there. We can go, if you have any questions, let me know. I can talk about it. But like, once you get a job offer, the last thing is to negotiate the job offers. Like, imagine you're getting job offers from multiple companies, or um, even if it's just one company, they did like you a lot, and that's why they gave you an offer. Never ever accept a job offer as it is presented to you. Always try negotiating, always. Like, as freshers, we might not know that we can negotiate job offers, but you can negotiate. And that is I can do an entire talk on this, but I'm not going to dive deep. So I've just linked notes from Harvard Business Review on how to negotiate a job offer. But the takeaway from this slide is, always negotiate. Never accept what is presented to you at the first sight. And but this, I think, applies more only in the US setting. I've not. You can do it in the in the Indian setting too, but I've not tried it. At least you can definitely try it. And But in all this process, be sure that you keep expressing that you still like the company and you want to join the company, because if you show disinterest in the company, that's a totally different case. It's a very tricky thing to do, negotiating job offers, but it's a skill that you develop after you read and look at multiple people do it and hear their experiences. So I just gathered like a bunch of resources that will help you prepare for your coding interviews, all the tech interviews. Like, it covers all the stuff you need to know about a competitive like all of this is like crowdsourced. All of these are GitHub repositories with 150, 180,000 stars, and 50,000 stars. Like, they are very, very popular repositories that people use to learn about coding interviews and the tech interviews itself on a whole and how they need to prepare for them. Like, it talks about everything from preparation to job negotiation, like job offer negotiation. I'll just let this slide in here so that you can refer to it later. And one more thing you can notice, that there is always a GitHub repository which tracks all the open job openings for that particular year. You can also look for such repositories on GitHub and uh, and get to know what companies are currently hiring. Um, and yeah, so then the final thing which is common to both, if you want to do a job or if you want to pursue higher studies, is resume or CV building. So I would say this is going to be this is going to take time. It took me 1 to 2 months to perfect my resume and proofread with multiple people and get it perfectly formatted and machine readable and stuff like that. And it should definitely be one page. If you have 5 years of experience or more, then maybe you can have a two-page resume, but otherwise, definitely stick to one-page resumes. I mean, just one single side of paper. And don't be very verbose in your resume, because the recruiters maximum spend 10 seconds to 15 seconds on each resume and they just quickly skim through it. So make sure they're able to find the information they want, like you want them to look at. I just used a very basic resume template, which I have linked here. It's a latex based template. It's called McDowell CV. It looks like the one in the picture there. I find it simple, it's clean, it was machine readable, and it uses space as well. So I just took it. But you can use any template you like. Just make sure it's readable and it's clean and simple. Don't complicate your resume with many images and stuff. Um, and one of the main thing is to follow the STAR principle when you're writing descriptions for your projects or internships or work experience or anything. So, what is the STAR principle? The STAR principle is basically you try to explain the situation that was given to you by the project and the tasks that were listed that you had to do and what were the steps you took or the actions you took to complete the tasks that were given to you to solve the situation, and what results you got out of that. So this gives like a good sense of how you should be structuring your descriptions, and this is like a very impactful way to do it, and a very succinct way to do it as well. Like one example is what I have listed here. Like, it's like in this they talk about solved inventory management deficit. So that's the problem. That's the situation. What did they do? Their task was to redesign something. And how did they redesign? Like what did they redesign? Like, what actions did they take? They redesigned the inventory control system, quality controls, network integrations, and training. And what were the results they got? They were able to do on-time order fulfillments with improved. They are giving numbers here, which is very, very important. You need to give numbers as much as possible, if you can. Like, how much. Like, try to quantify the impact your work created through the project or the work you did. So the STAR principle is very, very critical when you're writing a resume or CV, and it gives a good punch to your your descriptions. And there are a lot of resources published by these universities for job for writing resumes for job interviews, like CMU, UC Berkeley, JHU, and CSU. Everybody has their own version. Just read through all of them and do what feels best, because there are like a lot of nitty gritties, like this should be a margin, this should be a font size, and it's like a very meticulous process you need to go through building your resume. And the next set of uh, slides are going to be like this will be the final section where I talk about my work experiences. But before we jump into that, I'm going to pause again for questions if we have any until this point. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. Thanks, Vignesh. Oh, I was just okay, cool. So we did get a question. So what question? So the question is, will your job opportunities depend on the university you are in to a large extent? That's a good question. I was under the assumption that the university you are in is going to impact the job, the interview calls you're going to get, but I don't think that's the case anymore, because the top tech companies are starting to hire people which don't like who don't even have proper college degrees to start with. So let alone coming from a top amazing. Um, so the only thing that matters is that you having the talent and you having the right skill sets for the job and matching the job description and the needs of the business and stuff like that. But if you match all of that and if you're able to crack the interviews, the university you're from shouldn't impact you from getting interview calls back. Yeah. So, having answered that, I think we are done with the questions. Um, so I'll jump into this slide which I'm on, which is I'm going to talk about my interview experiences with the companies I've worked with and how I got these job offers. So the my first job offer was with Cube. This was a totally unconventional interview because the previous day, just before the Cube interviews, I interviewed with Amazon and failed miserably. And having gone through that, I just wanted to prove a point and ended up liking the job they had offered me. But how the interview process was, I think I did go through it briefly, but I can go through it again. So the thing is, the first round was multiple choice questions, and they had 30 or some thing around that, and they were pretty basic questions around operating systems, data structures, and networking and stuff like that. not very deep questions. So if you're able to, like, that's like just a filtering round, I guess. They don't try to penalize you or anything at that point. They just try to filter people. And once that round was done, the next round was a coding interview. It had about six questions, four questions which you had to solve, and two additional questions. And and unlike Amazon, they allowed me to code. I am with Python. They didn't have any language restrictions. I would say pick a language very early on in your first, second year, and be very confident with it, so that even if you are like woken up in the middle of the night and asked to code, you should be able to code in that particular language. At least you shouldn't be fumbling around for the syntax. But if you are able to do that with one language, the other languages just automatically come to you, because learning a language is easier. Just mastering the skill of solving a problem is what matters a lot. And so that round had like like all of the questions were around string manipulation and how to process huge volumes. I had done all of like a lot more complex stuff like that in my previous internship with Serendio, which was NLP startup. So I was in a pretty good shape to solve all of their problems. I was able to solve it in just 2 hours and completed the interview. And after that, they were very impressed with it, and they immediately started asking questions about my resume and the projects. They started looking into my GitHub profile on spot, and they looked at all of my previous projects, and they were impressed, and they didn't want to conduct any more there were two more technical interviews after that, I guess, but they didn't want to conduct that one. Like, they just skipped that for me. And I just went to the CTO round, which was the final round, which was clubbed with the HR interview, where I met with Cube CTO and we talked about all the projects I had worked on. And one key thing here doing. And I figured out how I can apply my machine learning knowledge um, to build interesting solutions for them. That is something I think that impressed them as well, and that's something you should keep in mind too. Like going out of the way and giving suggestions on how we can improve. It just shows that you are interested in joining the company a lot. And there was kind of like they just try like that. There are like multiple types of questions asked during the CTO interview about like very non-technical questions, like what was the biggest regret of my life and stuff like that. You just need to find constructive ways to answer such questions. Um, and that's the thing with my Cube interviews. And the next thing is Amazon. So Amazon, the best way to get into a company is to intern at the company first. And it's the easiest way too, because the bar for an intern is pretty low when compared to a bar for a new grad entering like entering their first job. So I would say get your internship. My internship interviews were pretty simple. So the first round was I had to go through an online coding. Oh, sorry. I had an online MCQ round with 30 questions again. I had to solve that, which was part one. And the part two of the online screening was I had to complete two competitive programming related questions, like two coding questions. Um, but the catch here is they don't allow Python, so I had to do it in Java. But fortunately, I had good experience with Java after working at Cube, because I got to work in Java for a year at Cube, and I was able to clear the screening rounds. After that, they technically had just one more in-person round, I guess, with an actual person, and they talked about my projects. They talked about how like there are these things called leadership principles in Amazon, and they try to evaluate you against each one of those by giving you situations and asking you questions about those situations and stuff like that, and asking questions about how you handle stuff in your life and stuff like that. And there was a question about there was a coding question as well, where they tried to test how I was able to design the question asked and how I was able to code it. They didn't want a working code; they just wanted it to look right and the logic to be right. And that's it. I got internship offer. It was pretty simple. But the thing is, an internship is essentially a 3 month long interview. The company tries to continuously assess how you are performing at the job, and how you will cope in the job if you are going to be a full time engineer at their team, like with their team. So doing good in an internship is very critical. So if you are able to crack that, you will finally get a job offer. You will be able to convert your internship into a full time offer. And my Microsoft interviews were quite unconventional on how I got them in the first place. Like, as I told, recruiters directly saw my LinkedIn profile, contacted me, and they wanted me to fly in for the final rounds of interview. That there was no phone screening or anything. They just wanted me to come to Microsoft, visit, and give the interviews, and they just wanted to see if I'll be liking the offer they had. And I flew in and into Seattle. And the first round, like, there were about 4 rounds of interview on the day, and 3 rounds were around coding questions from different aspects. One of them was not algorithm heavy, but it was related to scaling and stuff. Like, these companies are very, very like, like they stress the importance of scaling your code as the dataset size increases, because the amount of data we deal with here is just humongous. And like, we just get millions of requests every single day, and your code should be able to scale to all of that. So one of the rounds was that, and the other two was normal coding interviews, and one of them was mainly revolving around me trying to handle all the improvements they were asking for after giving a very basic problem. And the final round was the most interesting one, because it was with the manager, of whose team I was going to join. And they literally gave me a problem which their team is currently trying to solve, and they asked me to design a machine learning solution for it. And it was a design question. They didn't want me to code anything. But I took it to the whiteboard, drew all of the block diagrams, explained everything, and they felt like I did a pretty good job with like how the design went and how to do and the soundness of my solution and all of that. And that's how I got my Microsoft offer. And yeah, um, I can pause for questions now, or I can go to the next slide. Um, cool. I don't think we have any questions, so I'm just going to the next slide. So it's going to be around the work life at each of these companies. So if you're looking for a perfect 9 to 5 job, and if you don't ever want to work after that, and if you're going to be complaining if you ever want to work after 5, that's never going to happen in any company. In any company, there are going to be times where you're going to be very busy. You have to work extra hours to get the work done, but the frequency with which you have to do them might differ. And it doesn't even depend on the company. It totally depends on the team you are with the company. For example, the team with which I got placed in Amazon, it was around AWS high performance computing, and my manager was so nice that if she saw me online after 6 p.m. in the evening, she will ping me and ask me to go offline and stop working. So it's totally dependent on the team. I've seen people at Amazon complain about work-life balance, that they have to work hard, but it's just a sample set you take, I guess. It's heavily team dependent. Um, and at Cube, the work-life balance, I like not just the work-life balance, the work-life. It's like I got to work on extremely interesting projects, like building like a viewer demographics mining engine from theater auditorium images, like counting the number of people who were sitting in a theater auditorium, the age, the gender, and like multiple other metrics and stuff like that. Um, um, and I also got to work on transportation algorithms, which decided how we should be delivering the movie content to the different theaters. And this algorithm was literally used to ship movies like Bahubali, and Kabali, and all of the high budget, high volume films. Um, and my algorithm did a pretty good job with that. So the thing is, you get to experiment a lot at small companies, because the scale is pretty tractable. And you get to work on cutting edge technology because it's a startup environment at Cube. But the same with Amazon and Microsoft, you still get to work on the latest stuff, but you might have to make some trade-offs with the engineering systems already in place because they are extremely stable, and they are capable of handling heavy traffic, like billions and millions of requests. And you need to keep in mind the scale at which you, like, whenever you need to make a solution work at scale, it's going to be a whole another thing. And my current work life at Microsoft, I would say that I'm enjoying it very well here because I get to work on what I love. I'm currently building like a search engine, like a scope search engine from scratch, which is domain aware, using NLP techniques, which I learned throughout like all this time and mainly during my master's, in one of the coursework. And it's been pretty exciting so far at Microsoft, and the work-life balance has been good as well. There are days where I worked extra hours, but there are days like where my manager just ping, like if it's Thanksgiving week, my manager just pings me and says, "Don't work this week, take this week off," and so on. Like there are times you don't work at all. There are times you need to put in extra effort and stuff like that. But overall, you will find it balanced. I think we have a question. Before what time is it better to have found what we are interested in? That is a very good question. So the thing is, I have seen people change areas of interest after working on it for 10 years. So it's not that you need to have everything figured out very early. That there is no set deadline. Like you can try different things with life. Just take it as it comes. Like try like have like a few things you want to try. Give it a shot. If you don't feel that's your jam, try something different, and start building your skills in there. But know one thing, that not liking something and transitioning to some other domain is different from quitting a domain and then transitioning to other domain. Like don't be a quitter. Like if you feel that the particular domain you are trying out or experimenting with is something you like, but you're not ready to put in the effort to ramp yourself up to experience the full potential of the domain, then I would say that's a wrong approach. Like when you choose a domain, you need to put in a lot of effort to get past the learning curve in that domain, and then try to work on that and assess if you like the domain or not. You cannot just like get into a domain and say that no, I don't like it because I'm not able to work on it. If that's going to be the case, you will never find your domain. You need to get past the learning curve that the domain demands before you can finalize on what you want. But yeah, like whatever excites you and keeps you awake in the night is definitely what you want to be working on. Because that's when you will feel like you haven't worked or it's not a chore, it's something you enjoy doing. So, that said, I am going to go through some of the questions I got as a part of the registration forms which you guys submitted. I just picked up some interesting questions which I found that I might be able to answer. Um, there were a lot of questions about masters in countries like Australia, job in Australia, aeronautics, pharmaceuticals. I'm not the right person to answer those questions. I can give a try, but I don't want to mislead you guys by giving the wrong guidance here. I'm just going to stick to stuff which I've tried and tested, and that's what I've been talking all this time about. And okay, let's get into the Q&A sessions. So the first thing I see is time management and effective ways to concentrate on both campus placements and higher studies. So until the third semester, I don't see both of them as different things. Like even if you want to go to higher studies or if you want to go for campus placements, your preparation for competitive programming or your projects, your internships, and all of that are going to remain the same until third year. Maybe you need to think about taking the GRE and TOEFL if you're going to study for the highest, like if you're planning to study after graduating. But apart from that, I feel you uh, there is a lot of overlap between these paths. But I would say after third year, if you're still undecided on what you want to do, that's a pretty pickle situation to be in. It's always good to be um, that's going to take a lot of effort from your side to be able to manage both campus placements and higher studies because applying for masters is going to take a lot out of you, like writing your SOPs, LORs, CVs, submitting the applications on time, packing them. So having to deal with campus placements alongside this is going to be pretty difficult. If you want a backup option, I would say just get a job offer from a very safe company, like any of the service companies, and then just go ahead with your higher study stuff. But at least decide on one path after your fourth year. It's fine if you're undecided until your third year. It's totally fine. But yeah. The next question, I had a lot of questions around publications and how important they are. So when like the publications technically um, it depends from university to university and the kind of program you're applying to. If it is a research oriented program or if the entire university is a research oriented university, like JHU is pretty research oriented. Publications do carry a lot of weightage when you're applying for a master's degree at JHU. But there are like engineering focused schools which don't worry about publications. In that case, it's not a must, but it's a good to have, given that master's is effectively masters by research. There is a huge research component to it. So yeah, and to be fair, like all the publications I had were just study papers, and all of the solid papers I wrote didn't even get published, but they just got pushed to archive, and they were just in the internet for people to see. But that was more than enough, I guess, for getting the publications requirement satisfied. But if you're applying for a PhD, it's a totally different scenario. Publications are going to be a huge deal. It's not that you need to have them. It's going to be that all the other peers who are applying with you for the same university, for the same program, for a PhD will be having them. And when you are compared against them, they will want to pick the person with the publication over the person without a publication and stuff like that. And the next question was around where in the US would you recommend to go for CSMs? I think we talked about the location aspect of it, and that's what this question is trying to ask. So the location doesn't matter because all of them are remote and they will fly you in if they need to interview you. So don't worry about like too much about where you want to do your masters. Like the location doesn't matter. Um, and the next set of questions was around how do I find my interest? How do I choose my domain? I think we already covered this. And student scholarships. I think we briefly touched upon this as well. And this question is quite interesting. The last question is that they are quite interested, like the person who asked this question are quite interested like they don't want to pursue a work or work at IT company or go abroad, but they want to contribute to the growth of the country. But they're also not interested in civil services. So I might not be the best person to answer this, but I'm just going to take a hit and try it. So, as far as I understand from this question, I would suggest you trying to work on the different IT sectors in the government area so that you can help for the growth of the country. Like ISRO, or like, for example, one of the projects we did for ISRO was building a high resolution panorama construction engine using public compute nodes. And that effectively helps them to survey like quickly survey flood affected or fire affected areas from the top using a drone and build high resolution images out of it pretty quick and survey the impact that the natural disaster caused or stuff like there are multiple um, um, like uh, what to call them, like the multiple opportunities with the government that involves the need for IT people or CS talent that you can leverage to foster the growth of the country. But there might be other options which I'm not aware of. I just try to answer this, but this I know this is not the best answer, but yeah. The next question, like there are a set of questions around, is it better to take a gap year and focus on research work or like before applying? Like again, like if you, this decision is going to be very personal because you wanting to like work for a year or two before you apply for your master's. There are two things you need to consider. You should do this only if you feel like you are waiting to get into a specific university or a specific program and not just any master's program. If you are fine with any master's program, please don't wait a year or two. Just apply for masters, go to that like any university and just build your programming skills and get the job, and you will at least start earning earlier. But if you want to get into a specific program and want to gain specific research experience, specialization, or stuff like that, then I would say wait a year or two, build more experiences, and then like take a hit on applying for these specific masters universities which you want to get into. And again, note that it's gonna take so much effort to find time alongside your full-time job once you start job. Please keep that in mind as well, because I had a huge it was very hard for me to do that side by side. Cube was very supportive in that aspect. I should thank all of them, like my CTO, my managers, everybody was very supportive. Many companies are not that supportive. So I'm going to just drop that information in there. And the student scholarships and basically, I think this is repeated. Oh, sorry, I repeated questions. Yeah. So the next set is like in this pandemic, is it safe to do a master's? Or how do we plan for studying abroad in this COVID scenario? So a lot of juniors have been contacting me, like who will be joining JHU this fall in August. and they are actually joining during the COVID times. They actually got admits a year ago, but I advised them to not do a remote master's program because they are not able to travel to the US given the pandemic. Because doing a master's program remotely is useless in my perspective. It's as good as doing a course on Coursera because the main experience is you coming here and learning how to live life alongside learning all of the stuff and networking with people. Like there is like a lot of things you can experience when you're in person here. So I would heavily recommend only doing it if you're able to come to the US. There is going to be a lot of hurdles you have to face. There is going to be so many difficulties you have to face. But you will always find help. Like on how to get past all of that and study. But yeah, with the vaccination rates increasing in the US and the cases decreasing, I feel we are going in the right direction. But yeah, and when and how did you realize your interest in field of machine learning? I think I already answered this question. Um, it was the main turning point was my CMU internship. And before that, I just knew what machine learning was, but I was able to build a skill only when I was put in such an uncomfortable situation and I was forced to rise above it. I would say keep you putting yourself in such situations, take up things that you have no idea what it is about. Just again and again, I just repeat, fake it until you make it. And a lot of people do this very involuntarily. I'm just trying to express it in words, I guess. But yeah, and one of these is I'm tense to attend interviews. I want to be confident. What can I do? So the thing is, like what is making you tense is what you need to try to address first. If lack of preparation is what is making you tense, I would say practice, practice, practice until the point that you feel you can solve any question. If you don't have the time to do that, I would say practice as much as possible and trust in the process. And at max, what would happen? You would just be like the interviewer might say a no and they might not give you an offer, but don't let that hinder uh, uh, your ability to perform the best possible way you can in the interview. Try to be as prepared as possible. Like preparing well ahead and preparing a lot helps reduce the tension in interviews, and knowing the interview process before itself helps with it. So try to talk with people who are already working in the company, know the process, and try to reduce the number of unknowns in the interview you're going to take so that you're less tense and more confident when you're taking the interview. So we have a question coming. Can you give a few examples of universities that are more engineering focused opposed to research based? So that's a good question. So when I say engineering focused, I don't mean that these universities don't do research work. They do amazing research work. But the thing is, the kind of population that goes to these universities ultimately want to have an engineering job at the end, and they don't want to pursue academia or research. So in JHU, most of the people after completing their masters, they want to do a PhD or they want to get into academia. They want to become research assistants, postdocs, and stuff like that. But universities like NCSU, ASU, MIT, and stuff like that, like a lot of population who go in there want to land dream jobs, and that in turn helps you because you do what your network of people do. So if the peers in your university have a lot of context around what's happening with the engineering jobs and stuff, um, they will give you more like insights, and that will help you in turn to get into more engineering focused stuff. So I would say talk with the seniors in those universities. I'm not able to list more, But talk with the seniors in the universities, contact them on LinkedIn. Please don't hesitate to contact anybody. A lot of people contact me all the time on LinkedIn, and I try to answer the questions as much as possible. But yeah, so uh, that's what I meant about engineering focused versus research focused and stuff like that. And yeah, so the next set of questions. These questions, I think I might not be the best person to answer it, but I just wanted to give it a try. So, is starting a startup right after UG a good idea? It depends on what kind of person you are. If you already have an amazing idea which you feel like is going to revolutionize something in some part of the world, or which is going to revolutionize a very small portion, even, I would say, yeah, go ahead and start like startup, but know that it's not going to be a very easy path. You need capital for the startup, you need money, you need people to work on it. You have a lot of things to figure out before you can start up right after UG. If you are confident enough, you can handle all of the uncertainty that comes with it and all of the financial burden you're going to take on with it, then I would say, yeah, go ahead. Otherwise, keep building your startup idea on the side. Don't let it die. Just keep building it slowly at a like a 20% rate or something like that, and start building your finances, start networking with people, join a job, get to know a lot of people, build your network, like get to know what the industry is doing, and before like understand the waters which you're going to step into before you actually start up. um just take my advice with a pinch of salt, like just like a grain of salt, but yeah, and that's my 2 cents on it. And can I specialize in neuroscience after obtaining a bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering? I'm not going to answer this question directly because I'm a computer science major, but Johns Hopkins University has an amazing neuroscience program. Their biomedical engineering department is the top rated in the US. And I did my research assistantship in one of the neuroscience labs called Neurodata under Joshua Woggleston. He's an amazing professor, and I am a computer science major, and I took his classes, and I was able to specialize in neuroscience and stuff, and I did machine learning related stuff in neuroscience, like computational neuroscience. So if I am able to transition into neuroscience, why can't a biomedical engineering person transition into neuroscience? So yeah, definitely yes. And can a non-IT CS student be placed in marquee companies? Is it possible for them? Um, to be frank, I don't understand what the lingo on marquee is. But I'm going to assume it's like software companies or top companies. And yeah, I know a lot of non-IT CS students get placed in top companies, in CS companies. Like one of my friends at JHU was like was a chemical engineering major, and he was very much interested in computer science, so much so that he made sure he gained a lot of experience during his undergrad, with respect to the CS domain. Like he tried to do a lot of CS projects. He even tried to get a CS internship. Like he tried to gain as much as CS experience as possible so that you can argue your case of why you want to change streams from being a non-IT or a CS student into getting into the CS domain. It's on how you try to substantiate your case with the your profile. So yeah, it is totally possible. So then the last question for the day. Like this is one of my favorite questions. Like one of them asked, I feel like this should be the question of the day. Are you happy? I feel this is a very, very profound question to ask someone. And thank you for the person who asked this question. So I'll try giving my answer to it. Am I happy? Yep, absolutely. I'm very, very happy. But that doesn't mean that I had to struggle a lot, face a lot of failures to get to the place where I am. But I enjoyed the journey and the process, is what I would say. Even though I faced a lot of failures, I did have a lot of success as well. And that kept me going and that kept me happy. And like happiness is totally very subjective as a concept. For me, according to me, happiness is me just sitting on a Sunday evening, hacking through code and writing some Python script is equally as happy as traveling around the world and chasing sunsets. So I feel I get to do my fair share of both in my current job. And I feel that, yes, I am happy doing what I am doing. So, yeah. Um, and I'm just opening the ground for live Ask Me Anything kind of questions. That's it. That's all I had for this talk. That went a lot. That was a very, very long talk. This is my first time giving such a long talk too, but yeah. Sorry for being very draggy if you feel I was boring you or stuff, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody had something to take away from this talk. Because there are just lots of things you could do after graduation. Um, yeah, shoot your questions away if you don't have questions. I think, yeah, I think we have one. Do you have plans of coming back to India? If yes, what will your future plans be? Okay. I'm going to say currently I am going to answer that in a based on a conditional thing. Like I want to start up at some point in my life, and I feel like India might be the best place to start up. But I'm just waiting for the right team and the right skill sets to be developed in me, and I'm just waiting to get more financially stable, so that I'm just able to jump into a startup with zero revenue for two years or 3 years and be safe financially. So I'm just trying to figure all of those pieces out. And if I'm coming back to India, it would definitely be to start up because that's my aim one day. I want to start up. I want to have have a company of my own. But currently, I'm loving the job I'm doing at Microsoft because this is something I've been wanting to do from very early on. Since 2014, I actually wanted to build NLP systems that too at scale, and I'm getting to build a search engine from scratch. And all of this is just super exciting. So I'm just living the moment, and I don't have any immediate plans of coming back to India unless and until something very interesting pops up as an idea for my startup. But yeah, I don't have any plans for at least the next 2 3 years. I'm gonna give another 2 minutes. Uh, okay, people say ML is especially frustrating. What's your opinion on this? Okay, ML is frustrating. Okay, I'm not sure what aspect you're bringing this argument from, but I'm going to answer on what I understand from the question. So ML is frustrate. Like you can think of ML as frustrating because the rule number one in ML is you torture the data until the data confesses. That is part of the process. Babysitting on training a model is part of the process. You needing to try out various different architectures is part of the process. You needing to have a model that is extremely accurate and production ready is part of the process. So I would say if all of that is frustrating for you, I think you should consider, like, reconsider your domain of interest, because in uh, in any domain there will be something that's going to be frustrating you. Like, for example, I hate documentation. I hate documenting stuff that I do, but the job I am currently doing requires me to. So I try to do the best job I can with the documentation stuff. So that is always going to be something every job is going to have that is frustrating, but you just weigh out the good versus the bad. If the good is very much higher, like I do agree that tuning, like fine tuning a model, sitting down, babysitting it, all of that can get frustrating. But the joy you get once the model works and you see it being very, very intelligent is just priceless for me, and that's what I work towards. So it's just you weighing the good versus the bad, and like every single domain, every single career path has it. So I'm not going to say machine, not just machine learning, but if you consider that frustrating, that every single job has something that's frustrating. Cool. I'm gonna give another minute or two for questions. If not, I'm gonna conclude my talk there. Oh, sorry. I was on mute again. I should stop doing this. So yeah. So what I was just saying was, I'm like you guy. This was great doing this talk, and you can find me on LinkedIn, Gmail, and you can find all of my work, the code I've pushed, the talks I've given on YouTube, and stuff like that, and stuff like that. And if you feel you need more help, or if you don't want to ask questions in a public forum, or if you have any specific questions you want to ask, always feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. I try to answer as much as possible, to the best of my knowledge. And I'm not going to promise immediate replies. It At max it'll take a week, but I'll try to get to the questions you ask me on LinkedIn as much as possible. Uh, but yeah, so this is how you can contact me. Feel free to contact me about any questions you have. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Like it was a great and amazing talk. Like we wish to do like thank you on behalf of the ACM Student Chapter for accepting our invite and making this day a very useful one.
Oh yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. Yeah, sure. And I envy you guys for having such a big team behind SSN-ACM. When I was the chairman, I was only having 4 or 5 people to help me, and you have a huge team behind you, and you are getting to do a lot of amazing things. Keep it going.
Yeah, I'm wishing to like collaborate with you again in the near future.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, sure.